Scott, the vision was inspired over time by the words of the Bible and the teachings of Christianity, but applies to all men everywhere regardless of their faith. So do you think that vision has changed? The vision has not changed. The vision is the same. But what has changed is, like I just said earlier, is the interpretation of the vision. So the interpretation is so important. And just going back, I jumped ahead of my notes, but when that happens, right, the vision is not clear. When man is led by the Spirit of God, the Spirit is what interprets the word and makes it clear. Brings clarity, right? Then he goes on to say, now, however, the Declaration's ideas are scoffed at by philosophers, misrepresented by historians, attacked by clergymen, ridiculed by law professors, held in contempt by power-hungry politicians, and ignored by people. And he goes on to say, as long as this continues, the American Revolution is not over. Because man has his mindset on what this should look like. So that's why there's that constant battle always happening. Right? As long as man is in charge, the war is never going to end. Right? Right? As long as we allow man to be in charge, then we will be in constant state of war. And he goes on to say it's important, particularly for Christians, to know that the Declaration of Independence stands in the Judeo-Christian stream of political theory. Does anybody know what that is? Good, it wasn't just me. I was like, I have no clue what the heck. I'm like, what does Judeo-Christian stream of like political theory mean? So I just looked it up. In modern political and philosophical discourse, the phrase Judeo-Christian values is often used to describe a broad ethnical framework that is believed to have shaped Western civilization. This includes the sanctity of human life, the belief that individuals are made in the image of God, and it's got an objective morality where it follows divine laws such as the Ten Commandments. And then it has a social responsibility tied to it, that it's a prophetic tradition of caring for poor, widows, and strangers. So I was like, all right, well, that kind of makes sense now. And it goes on to say, he says, its legacy must be defended. Who's going to defend it? God's people. And how are we going to defend it? By how we walk this thing out. Right? It's more to walk it out versus to defend it with my words. Because I could easily defend it by what I speak. Right? But it means so much more when you actually put it into practice and you actually walk it out.
Actions speak louder than words.
Yep. So yeah, its legacy must be defended since the war for independence was different both in degree and in kind from its secular counterpart, the French Revolution. So it was a battle of the spirit as well. Morality. We must proclaim the legacy of political and spiritual liberty. So Kelly goes on in his book, and he has the next title of his section is called Child Sacrifice. So he's dealing with the seed now. Right? And he's going to go into the aspects of what our country is doing to the seed. Right? Remember how we started it, right? We're not going to destroy ourselves. We're not going to be destroyed from the outside. You're going to be destroyed from the inside. And the seed is an important part of that.
One generation away.
Yep. And he's got Habakkuk 2:10. You have plotted the ruin of many peoples, shaming your own house and forfeiting your life. Right? When you plot something, right, what do you do when you're plotting? I know I feel like I'm asking questions. Maybe I'm hoping for a response, right? Or just trying to get the the gears to turn. You know what I'm saying? Like, what happens when you plot something? Scheming, right? There's planning and there's scheming that's at work. The mind starts to think and process, right?
Can I add something to that?
Yeah,
That's probably where we get the word schematic from.
probably. Yeah.
Manifest doesn't instantly draw circuitry like for a TV. It's like one little transistor at a time, and before you know it, you've got the whole picture. Scheming takes a lot of effort.
Does. Where was I going with that? But I don't know. I lost. Yes. Where was I going? Somebody please help me and answer that. Oh God. But he's dealing with I feel like he's dealing with greed, right? Because man is plotting. Man is always plotting, right? How can I get better or for myself, right? And we had this conversation in the car this morning, and I don't even know how it started. I don't know. We were driving through Holyoke to get here. Not the best part of Holyoke. Oh, we went to get a coffee. That's why I went that way. My God, I'm losing it. And we started talking about corruption. And I was like, yeah, well, look around. This is corruption at its best right here. Because you can look this way and you're like, holy cow, look at all those nice houses. And you can look this way and say, whoa, what's going on over there? Right? That's corruption at its finest happening right there. But corruption always leads to ruin. And that's what he's dealing with, right? You reap what you sow, right? What is built on unrighteousness will eventually collapse, is what he's dealing with, which is the truth. You can make it look really pretty on the outside, but eventually it's just going to start crumbling on the inside and just fall down. That's what corruption does. That's what greed does to man. This house, these are just notes, right? I was just thinking this week, and it's so true, right? What is built on unrighteousness will eventually collapse, right? This country was built on righteousness. That is why it is still standing. So that gives us hope, right? And I thought about this house right here. This house was built on righteousness. That is why it is still here. Built on righteousness, built on wisdom. And there's proof, there's evidence like that is true, right? Like, just this past week or two, I've seen things in the natural that looked kind of ugly, right? That looked like it was going to be bad, but in the spirit, God was doing something. Right? That's righteousness right there. That's God's wisdom. That's his provision, saying, hey, we're going to continue to build this thing, right? And like I said, our great country was built on the basis of righteousness, the Word of God. It was built by wisdom brought from the Holy Spirit. And the issue that we're having is we have these people with radical ideas, foolishness, that are creeping in and causing the foundation to crack a little bit.
It's wisdom to them.
It's wisdom to them, right. Right. That's that misinterpretation piece. To them, it seems like it's wise.
We had a couple of dozen.
MC lady.
We had a couple of dozen people become citizens yesterday. And it was special to them because they became citizens and because it was the 4th of July. But to become a citizen, you have to take a certain amount of study of the history of this country.
That's true. That's true.
So they become citizens and they appreciate what's happened. On the other hand, you have an influx of immigrants, a great percentage of which don't even speak the language and have no idea of the history of the founding of this country. And so they live on the you owe me spirit. I'm here, you owe me money, a place to live, food, benefits, health. You owe that to me.
Yeah.
And that's totally the wrong spirit, but that's the spirit that will decay a citizen or a country. So knowing your history and knowing where you came from,
Yep.
so important.
Right, like I don't know the whole process behind, becoming a citizen, but I think you do have to know about, the history of the country or whatever you have to do. So think of that. It's a glimpse of the vision of what you're taking an oath to, right? And then you, like you said, you have those that have no clue, and then they come in here and they misinterpret what they think that vision is, and that's why you have the issues that you have. And then you can take that and you can put it into the house of God too. Right? You've got those that will come in that don't know the vision of the house, and then they'll misinterpret what's happening, and that will cause chaos to happen, Like those are two words I've heard a lot the past few weeks, is establish and vision. And it's very important, right? Two very important words. And we're actually going to talk about that. Established means what? Means having taken root, growing well, and being thick. That's what established means. And then vision means the ability to think or plan the future with imagination or wisdom. But both of these need the Spirit in the midst to produce what God intended. Let's see. In the Bible, so in the concordance, established means to be firmly set, founded, or confirmed. It usually refers to God's steadfast covenants, his kingdom, or the strengthening of a believer's faith. Let's see. In the Old Testament, the most common word is kun, which means to be firm, stable, or prepared. Preparation is so important, right? And then another word that was in there was yasad, which means to lay a foundation or to found. In the Greek, it's, the main word is sterizo, which translates to fixing firmly, strengthening, or establishing. Right? Only the Lord establishes his people. Right? We are what? We're a covenant people with him, and he has given us a secure place among the nations. Right? I want to jump into 1 Samuel real quick too. 1 Samuel 2, verse 8. He raises up the poor from the dust. He lifts up the needy from the ash heap to make them sit with nobles and inherit a seat of honor and glory. Right? So like I just said, the Lord has established us. Right? What does it mean to sit? Because he literally says, to make them sit. Right? What are we dealing with? Rest in the day of trouble. What is sit? When I sit down, what am I doing? I'm resting. And who has established that rest? Only the Lord can establish that rest that we are looking for, but you've got to have that vision to be able to attain that, right? Right? Jesus, what? He sat down at the right hand of God because his work was complete. Right. And then if you look at it too, right? Making someone sit as a noble, what does that mean? It means an invitation to stop striving on their own strength and instead rest in his peace, his power, and provision that only he can provide. Like there's just so much in that little verse right there of what God has done for his people. Because he's established. You believe he set you where you are, right?
Yes.
Yes, right. Please answer. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, that was a question, yes. Right, we believe that he has established us, he has set us here, and he's given us a vision, a purpose. That should give you rest right there. Because it's not in my own thoughts why I'm here. It's because he's established, he's purposed this for me to be here, for you to be here. That should give us rest right there. Because then you shouldn't be sitting here thinking, am I supposed to be here? No, you are supposed to be here because he put you here. Right? Let's see. He has elevated us above the fray, right? Like, think about that. He has elevated, because of this, he has elevated us of the chaos of the world, which brings the anxieties, the fears. And he's also given us the power and the authority to see the circumstances at a higher elevation, right? We dealt with the ascended life. Come up here, come up higher, and see the things that I see the circumstances a little bit different, because that's going to produce a different result. Right? Because sometimes we get so caught up, we react to this situation from this playing field right here, where he's like, no, come up here, see it how I see it, and the circumstance looks a little bit different. Okay, so he's got, for the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he set the land on them. We know what pillars do. Do you guys know what pillars do? There's the question again, right? What do they have to do first, though? It's got to sit on a foundation first, right? You have the foundation first, and then comes the pillar. Right. You can't just put a pillar there on a piece of dirt and not have the foundation poured.
No, you can say that.
Right? So the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he set them there. And he set the land on them. And what do pillars do? Here's my question again, sorry. What do pillars hold up? Right? Yep. They help support a structure. They bear the load. They bear the load. He guards. Oh, go ahead.
Just in a building natural sense, there's one pillar there and there's one pillar there. In a building like this, if this was like a regular ceiling, it bears the weight from one side to the other side, but it's only functioning underneath the main beam. The main beam stretches from one side to the other. A main beam that is too thin will cause a bow in the middle, and it can't support what's above it. We had a prophetic word over this house. I don't remember who it was. We were building the roof before the foundation was set. Anybody remember that? And Pastor Dale had to go back and fix some things because he was talking about some spiritual stuff. But when we're talking about just a natural sense, a building, in a sense of the only way to make a main beam more functional is by putting more plies of wood together. So one 2x10 across a distance can't hold the support above it. You put two 2x10s next to it, and then you put a piece of 1/2-inch plywood in between it. You sandwich that in. Then you put another board on the side of that. The wider the main beam, the more support is on the roof above it, but the function of the pillars will always be the same. It only carries the load of what's above. Listen to the definition of established. You and I talked about established last week before the Sunday school even started. Establish. To bring into being, set on a firm basis. To prove to be valid. There was a word in here, I'd ask Kelly what it was. And do you ever go to a parking garage and you go and pay? Or you go to the courthouse and you have to go get your parking validated?
Valid, yeah.
It's not valid without that stamp. Think about that for a second. Are we established in this house? Is there a stamp of validation A seal.
yeah.
That's where I was going.
seal, yeah.
We talk about, is your name written in the book of life? That's a form of a seal upon our lives. A pillar is only as good as the main beam above it. And a pillar is only as good as the main beam above. But if it's not on a solid rock foundation, the main beam could hold the weight above it, but if what's underneath the pillars is soft, not established, or not on solid ground, everything above it crumbles.
I could be wrong on this, but right after, I mean, I'm getting this anyway, but when Ronnie said that, I just keep getting this. You have to know who you are. Because if you don't know who you are, you don't have that relationship, a strong relationship, you can't help anybody else. You can't hold them up because you're not that strong. You don't have that, what do I want to say, ability or whatever it is. You have to know who you are so you don't get shaken, so you don't get moved, so that you can hold somebody else up. So with the foundation, you know, so it's identity there too. You know, you have to know who you are and what's your relationship with the Lord and how well is your relationship so that you can stand there and help someone stand up spiritually and naturally. So it's a intimacy, the whole thing.
Yeah, verse 9, this might tie in. So he says, he guards the feet of his godly, faithful ones. So think of the pillar, right? What do you put above the pillar? What's above these pillars? There's a covering. There's a protection. And only he provides that, right? So he guards the feet of the godly, faithful ones. So if you really think about that, think of how people used to walk back in the old days. You think it was all paved, nice, smooth, bike trails and etc.? No, it was rocky, dangerous, not too pleasant of a walk. It wasn't. I'm sure they weren't like, hey, let's go for a walk because I want to go get my steps in today. Exactly. They didn't have their Hokas on or their Nikes on. Do you get what I'm saying? But like we laugh about it and we joke about it, but our walk today is just as dangerous as it was back then, but it's just a different kind of danger that we face. Right? But he is faithful to those that are faithful, and he protects us as we walk. He provides that covering. But the wicked ones are silenced and perish in darkness, for a man shall not prevail by might. Right? Human power, wealth, or being the smartest person are never enough to succeed unless you have him. The adversaries of the Lord will be broken to pieces. He will thunder against them in the heavens. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth, and he will give strength to his king, and will exalt the horn, which speaks the strength of his anointed. So if we're seated with him, anything that tries to rise up against you, he will give you the strength to stand up against that. Where are we going? Isaiah 51:16. I have put my words in your mouth. Like that kind of blew me away when I sat there. I was like, oh my God, you have put your words in my mouth. And then I thought about that. I'm like, what the heck is coming out of my mouth right now? No, think about that though. If you believe that he has put his words in your mouth, sit back and think of some of the things you may have said and be like, what was I thinking? That's the problem. You were thinking. Or you weren't thinking, right? But just, it's so crazy, right? Because what did God do with his words? He spoke everything into being. He spoke life. The thing is, he spoke life. So if he put his words into my mouth, all that should be flowing out is life. Right? That's why I said this blew me away, because I'm like, what the heck am I doing, right? And then he started like dealing with my heart, because I'm like, wait, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth is going to speak. And I'm like, holy smokes, that's a whole other message I don't want to get into today. But like, really think about that. Like, think about how much power you truly possess in your mouth, right? Guard your heart, because what you have in there, what you have in there of abundance is going to come out. And I've covered you with my shadow of my hand. There's that protection again. And he has done all this for what? A purpose. Right? He's put his words in your mouth. He's given you the covering. He's made you a pillar. There's a purpose behind it. He's established you. He's given you vision. For all this, I'm sorry, that's not even finished reading. Wow. Yes, all that purpose. Then he goes on to say, to establish the renewed heavens and lay the foundations of the renewed earth, and to say to Zion, Jerusalem, you are my people. Right? Because what are we doing? What is our goal? What does he want us to do? Christ-like, but also to establish his kingdom, build his kingdom on this earth, on this earth. And he's given you all these things to make it easier, right? The bell's going to ring. All right, so we're going to read a little bit out of Kelly's book here. He's got America began as a Christian nation, the Bible, its moral and ethical base, right? That was the base, the foundation. Godly character and solid moral values ranked high. I still kind of remember that. Like, I'm not that old because you told me that this morning, but I still kind of remember where these things were like ranked pretty high in importance. You know, probably because I went to Catholic grade school, you know, because they had morals and stuff. I don't know, but I'm not bashing anybody, but I'm going to keep reading because if I talk, it's going to not come out good. So the founding fathers would be shocked to know America's besetting sin, the murdering of its unborn, the crime of abortion. Right? That's where like Kelly starts dealing with the seed. The sin for which Jehovah could not forgive Judah and Jehoiakim was the killing of her children, making them pass through the fire to Chemosh and Molech, the gods of Moab and Ammon. The sin of America is abortion and child abuse. This is in Kelly's book. And he has in here, he's like, that is obvious. We know that is obvious because we see it every single day, everywhere you look. What is not so obvious is that we have ruined our children by offering them up to the gods of the secular humanism. You want me to say that again? I can? I will. All right. What is not so obvious is that we have ruined our children by offering them up to the gods of secular humanism. So that had me thinking a little bit too. Is like, you know, we look at abortion and all these things in the natural, like that's so evil and it's so bad. But is it any worse when you offer up your children to the world? Right? It's just something to think about. Right? Because sin is sin, isn't it? He's got in here, since the legalization of abortion in 1973, Roe versus Wade, there have been millions of abortions in the United States. The United States has the most permissive abortion laws of any democracy. But child sacrifice in this nation does not stop with the outrage of killing babies in the womb. So kind of what I was just talking about. It continues with the crime of child abuse in the home. The number of children abused in the United States has increased dramatically. Some of the reasons for the dramatic increase in child abuse in this nation are, we see these: substance abuse, stress of single parenthood, and poverty. And then he just literally says, we must save the children. We must save the seed.
Remember the seed.
Right? So easy to say it. So what are we going to do? Right? How often do we say that? Next generation, okay, so what are we doing? What's the plan? Right? Because just talking about it ain't going to do anything. Like I said earlier, we could talk about it till we're blue in the face, but if you don't actually walk it out and do something, nothing's going to change. Right? One of the most degenerating factors contributing to child neglect, hence spiritual retardation. This is Kelly Varner here, right? He calls it spiritual retardation. And I was like, why would, like, I'm like, wow, that's pretty harsh. I'm like, if I read that, I'm going to specify that was you. Because we can't, well, because you can't say that word because people are, you know. But if you really look up the word retardation, because I looked it up because I was like, maybe I don't understand what the word means. It means to slow or delay one's growth. So he's putting that on the level of child sacrifice, because if you slow or delay their growth in the Lord, you might as well just throw them into that fire he's talking about.
Probably why it says in the book of Deuteronomy, put it before them all the time, write it on the forehead, speak about it.
Yeah. Well, or train them up when they're young.
That's right.
Right? Yep.
Going in and coming out, you know? Mike.
Yell.
I was just saying, that's why it says in the book of Deuteronomy, I mean, is the word eternal or what? Teach them the ways. Talk about them constantly. Put it before them. Tie it around their wrists, you know? And make them, in other words, from the time they're young, teach them so that when they get to that age, they're not going to be afraid to say who they are. It's embedded in them. But we don't. And you know, we heard this many a times. Well, we make them brush their teeth. We make them do this. But you know what? If you don't want to go to church, it's okay. My kids never had a choice. And I'm sure, and I know there's others in this church. Their kids never had a choice. You lived in my house, this is what you do. That, you know, we did everything we could do. I said to my kids one day, I said, when I stand before God, I'm going to say, you know what? I think that I tried to do everything you wanted me to do. Was it all done right? No. But in my heart, I tried to do everything according to God's word. Did I miss it here and there? Yeah. But you know what? He knows the heart. And from the time they were small, I'm only speaking for me. I taught them that word. I made them, I did make them because sometimes they didn't want to. I had one that said, I'll just sit there and stare at it. I'm not reading it. But you know what? They had a time and a place where they had to read their Bible. Because if I can make them brush their teeth, I can make them read their Bible.
Yeah, I was thinking, we were talking about the Christian Judeo principles and morals and how, in essence, that's really a pillar of today's society, or at least it's supposed to be. And then I was also thinking, in fact, I think Sister Fran had mentioned about the Ten Commandments in Texas, how they're trying to reintroduce it in prayer. Well, if you think about it, you have a pillar, and I almost kind of think of it as, think of that game Jenga. And now you knock out the Ten Commandments from public schools, from public places. You knock out prayer from public schools, public places. You legalize abortion. Well, that's that game of Jenga. You keep popping out these sticks, and what happens to that pillar? Poof, it's going to fall. So I think it's important that we all start putting those sticks back in place.
The bell rang? Oh. Oh. All right. All right, I guess we'll stop then. We'll pick up next week.